Michelle McDonald here. Happy Tuesday. I just wanted to pop in today and talk a little bit about parent communication. And this is a huge topic that we could go on and on forever and ever. And so I thought that today would be a great time to just start and talk a little bit about parent communication, and then we'll have another session later where we can dive in even more on a deeper level. So I wanted to offer to you some tips and tricks and some things that I've learned over the last 7 years. And I want to share with you a little bit about my background as well. I have taught in both the private school and in a Title I school in a lower socioeconomic area. And I think no matter where you teach, the bottom line is that parents want to know that you are an advocate for their child and you want to build that partnership. Now, the way that you may go about doing that can be different because your style of communicating may be different. And as well, what works in one school setting may not work exactly the same in another school setting. So I want to talk a little bit about that. When I was teaching at a private school, I had almost too much communication with parents to where I had to find a balance between what was appropriate communication and what was hovering over a parent hovering over their child, versus in another school setting where I had no parent volunteers and I really had a hard time communicating with parents. And so I have a couple of tips and tricks and things that I've learned. And so the first thing I want to go over with you is find what works best for you. When I first started teaching, I dove into email and I communicated with parents and let them know that, hey, the best way to get a hold of me is email. And I've found over the years that that just isn't my style and doesn't really work for me. And I've changed that to phone contact because that works best for me. But one thing I found with email is that it's important to set some parameters for when you choose to communicate with parents. So I would get tons of emails in a day about this is happening at recess, did you know? Or I'm concerned about this, I want to come in and volunteer. And so what I like to do with email is communicate and let a parent know, hey, got your email, I'll get back to you soon. So that a parent knows, hey, they got the email, they can rest assured that I'm thinking, and it gives me a little more time to go back and then think about my answer. I let parents know as well up front when I communicate through email is that, like a job, I have business hours. I have things I need to do with my family. I will do my very best to get to an email at the end of the school day, but after 4:30, I might have to get back to them the next day. I also let parents know that on the weekends, I don't check email. I made a mistake in my first couple years of teaching where I would check emails on the weekend. And for me, mentally, it was exhausting. And what I found was that when I would email parents back a response on a weekend, like 9 o'clock at night, parents then thought, oh, I can respond back. And I'd get another email. Or parents would then think that every weekend was an okay time to email me and I'd get more emails. And so I think what I have learned is that setting some parameters for myself and my own well-being and for parents to know what works and when is a good time to communicate really, really helps. If you choose not to use email and you choose to use phone, then a couple tips that I have for you with phone calls. If you use your school to contact parents and you have a school phone, I think that is awesome. But one of the schools where I taught, we didn't have access to like a phone for contacting parents. You can go into your phone on, like if you use an iPhone, and you can actually turn off the caller ID so that you can contact a parent without letting them have your phone number if you don't feel comfortable giving your phone number, which for me, I've never really felt comfortable giving my phone number. So I will try, because I'm using my phone because my computer had some difficulties, I will try and share with you the step-by-step of how you can do that on your iPhone so that you can communicate with parents without having to worry about them having your number. Also with phone calls, I love to use phone calls because it's quick and fast. When I was emailing parents, I would slave over an email and how it would be worded. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't say something that could be taken out of context. And I would have my colleagues read over it. And I just would be nervous about sending it. And what I found was if I just made a phone call, I could do it in 10 minutes. I could get the parent on the phone half the time. I could leave a message. And it saved me so much heartache and time. And so if you are feeling like I've got to respond to these parents and these emails can take me forever, try making a phone call and see if it relieves some stress and maybe makes things a little bit easier, because for me that really helped. Sometimes parents will get a phone call from a teacher and they automatically think that it must mean that their child did something wrong. I like to contact parents both with the positive times and maybe things that aren't going so well. Parents want to know that you are there and you care and you notice. If you even notice the tiniest little thing, that you could call a parent or even send a quick email and say, hey, your child had a great day today and I just wanted to let you know. It can be as simple as that. Parents really appreciate that, and then it helps build that rapport with them. And I found that it doesn't take that much time. Even if you are teaching middle school, which is where I am right now, or high school, if you even just a quick little email, parents really do appreciate it. Now, on the other hand, with behaviors, there are times when I could spend time emailing a parent about, hey, this incident happened today. But sometimes what works for me is even to have call a parent at work and say, hey, I've got your kid here. Just wanted them to explain to you what happened, and I'll pass the phone over to the child. So the child is the one that is explaining the incident. So it's not always coming from me of what's going on in class. And for kids, kind of puts them on the spot because they know they're calling and interrupting their parent at work. And sometimes that can really be a game changer for behavior as well. I don't know if you've heard of the app Remind 101, but it is a phenomenal way of communicating with parents on a really quick basis without giving your phone number. Parents can sign up for the app and they don't have access to your phone number, but it's easy for you to send a quick reminder like, hey, we have a field trip tomorrow, make sure you pack a sack lunch. Or the weather's turning, can you please make sure that your kids are wearing a jacket or boots? And parents can get that. So that works really, really well. Most parents today have access to a phone with texting. And so working in two different settings where I could communicate with parents via email, and I'm working in a setting where a lot of parents didn't have email, the Remind 101 app is really, really helpful. And it is quick. It's really easy to just quickly send out a message to all of your parents in the class. So again, that app is Remind 101. So you want to check that out. Now, one year when I was teaching in private school, I had a class blog. And it's something to consider as far as a form of communication with parents, but at the same time, it is something to think about. How are my parents online? Are they using technology? Are they going to have access to the internet to get onto a class blog or class website? If your parents do, it is a phenomenal way to post pictures of what's going on in your class, because there are parents that aren't always able to volunteer within the school day, and they do really want to know what is going on. You can share pictures of projects and things that you're doing within your school day so that your parents just feel like they are involved and have a little bit of insight into what's going on. A class blog, I will tell you, is time consuming. It does take a lot of time. So just decide, is it worth it? Maybe ask parents, would you be interested if I put together a class blog as a form of communication for you? Would you be interested in doing it? Because we have so many things on our plate as teachers. We don't need to add something that is going to be utilized by two parents in a class. make sure that it's something that would be utilized by everyone if you choose to do that. Also, I don't know if you have heard, but at least there's a study that was done that said that individuals need at least 7 forms of communication or 7 ways of hearing something before they remember. So when I'm communicating with parents and I want to let them know that, hey, we have an upcoming concert or field trip, or we have this upcoming unit test, I try and let parents know in multiple forms, because the first time they get it, they probably are going to forget. It'll just slip over their head. So I try an email, newsletter, maybe post it in a Remind app so that parents have it in several different ways. One of the benefits of that too is if you have, and most likely have, blended families within your class, there are kids that if you just send home a paper newsletter and a child goes home with one parent, the other parent that maybe only sees their child on the weekend may not have that paper newsletter. So if you send email, both parents in a family would be able to access and know kind of what's going on in the class. And that takes a lot of stress off a child who would need to be sending home and doing a lot of paper shuffling. So if you can keep that in mind, that there are families that have different dynamics, that multiple forms of communication, and making sure you contact both parents if possible is always in the child's best interest. And one other thing I do want to touch on that I think is so important, and if you can do it, I encourage you to do it, is to attend sporting events and concerts and ballet recitals of your students. It means the world to your students, and for parents, they get to see that you are an advocate for their child and that you're cheering them on. You're sitting right there with them in the bleachers and cheering their child on. Parents take note of that. And if you have kind of a rocky relationship with the parent, which sometimes happens, that can be that level ground to where they realize, oh, they may call me about my child's behavior, but they still care about my kid. They're here. They're at this baseball game cheering my child on. So if it's possible, I let parents know, hey, if you have a concert coming up, recital, please let me know, because I want to be there if I can. And your students will appreciate it. Even if you teach high school, if you show up at basketball games, your students will notice, and they take note of that, and parents do too. So those are some of the tips that I have for you. I also do want to point out one last thing, that it is so important to protect ourselves as teachers. And there are times when we may send an email and a parent misinterprets it. And we send something and we think, ooh, I shouldn't have said it that way. Just keep in mind that it is so important to remain professional in our emails and the things that we send. One particular teacher where I was at a school where I was at sent a parent email that was misinterpreted, that the parent then screenshotted and submitted to the school Facebook district website and was accessible to all parents on a public forum. That's the last thing as teachers that we want. So just keep in mind that maybe sometimes a phone call is your protection, so that you don't have to worry about a paper trail and possibly a misunderstanding from a parent. I don't mean to scare you by any means either, because we have, and you will have, I'm sure, so many parents that are trusting and encouraging and are there and supporting, and those are the ones that you want to cling to. And just at the end of the day, when you have a hard day, remember, those are the ones that are there and supporting and encouraging, and bottom line, we're here for the kids, and that's what it's all about. I could talk on forever, but I want to know what your questions are. What are you struggling with? What's going well? What are you confused about? How can I help make parent communication this year the best yet. So feel free to comment below and I'll try and answer some of your questions. And then we'll circle back again on parent communication with some other experts that have been in the education field even longer than me, that have some insight that they can bring to the table as well. So I look forward to your questions. Thank you for tuning in for just this quick little insight, and I hope that it was helpful today. Have a great rest of your week, guys. Bye.